What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of State Champs Hang Time. This is the basketball podcast for the state of Michigan for our final show of 2018. We're going to bring it back probably around the week of January 7th. So a lot of hoops going to be played between that time. So we'll talk a little about that today. TJ Kelley, Scott Burnstein in the house. What's up, boys?
What's happening?
Man, we're getting into the holiday season.
Yeah.
Some holiday hoop fever that I'm feeling.
I'm feeling it.
Shoot, tons of games every single day.
We got our own event coming up on Saturday.
Yeah.
Start right here. And we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, awesome.
So we'll save that for later in the show. We'll do a full preview of the State Champs Winter Jam.
Getting a lot of good feedback, by the way, for our HangTime Podcast.
Oh, good.
And almost every time that I'm out at a game, I got people coming up telling me that they're enjoying it and really like the banter and the rankings and the
good.
It's getting a lot of good traction.
I felt this was going to be the year now, especially that we did it last year, but now it's going to really kind of come into its own. And we're getting a lot of reaction, a lot of good views and all of that stuff. So I want to quickly mention our sponsors up here: Lawrence Technological University, 26 sports soon to be offered here at LTU Track and Field beginning this spring. Recruit yourself at LTUathletics.com. They offer it all here, and this is also the site of the State Champs Winter Jam this Saturday, December 22nd. The MHSA, visit MHSA.com for scores and more. They've been really good partners with us this year, so that's where you go if you want to check out everything that's taken place, especially in hoops, in terms of scores. BCAM, the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan, the Assistant Executive Director, soon to be Director as of January 1st of BCAM, is Daniel Young.
Moving
on up. Of course, Dan Young, former coach at John Glenn, Westland, and Canton. He was Salem's girls coach last year.
Golf coach? He's a golf coach, too.
Fantastic golf coach.
Free golf, can't beat that.
Plymouth resident like myself will be joining State Champs Managing Editor and Head Writer Matt Mowery, talking to the top teams in girls basketball. So our BCAM segment coming up a little later, talking about the hoops teams for the girls. I want to quickly start out with a shout out to Nate Oates and Buffalo.
I was so excited watching that game last night against Syracuse.
14th in the state.
I was pretty good.
The best team in the state of New York is Buffalo.
Undefeated, goes into the Carrier Dome, knocks off Syracuse by double digits, I believe.
Get your Buffalo shirts ready.
That's right.
And get your Buffalo shirts, but you might only be wearing them for the next 5 or 6 months, because I don't see him staying there that much longer. He might be off. He might be off to greener pastures after this.
I believe Ypsilanti's Nick Perkins, the only one on that roster that's a Michigan native. He was going heavy JUCO on this particular roster, which is a smart move.
Right. I mean, if you want to win, and we're in a day and age where transfers are,
and if people don't remember,
relevant on every team.
Obviously, Nate got his made his bones as a basketball coach here in the state of Michigan. Won a state title with Romulus. Took Romulus to a couple Final Fours.
Could have won many more state titles, too. Just
had some tough teams.
Tough. It's like Clarkston all those years. Just had some tough tournament games, lost in some quarters and semis.
Decides to jump to the college level, takes an assistant job under Bobby Hurley, is with Bobby Hurley, I think, for only a year or two. Mm-hmm. Bobby takes the job at Arizona State. Nate slides in there and has just been gangbusters.
Brought some Romulus guys along with him, Wes Clark and Raheem Johnson.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's exciting to watch people and the evolution, just of their life, of their careers and stuff like that. And I think it's one of the things.
And we're going to see him in a Power 5 conference. If it's not 2019-20, it will be 2020-21. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I was watching Get Up this morning, and they're all shouting out Nate Oates. Yeah. And I was like, there it is. That's my guy.
And he's a great guy.
I think one of his, and a sharp dresser too.
Yeah, very accessible. Very accessible.
He was good when he was at Romulus.
He had everything but some Dietrich furs on.
Very accessible, very knowledgeable, a lot of energy, and a type of guy that I think is that perfect combination of a kind of a red ass, but also a great players coach.
Oh, yeah.
Players love to play for him, but he's not someone that that's soft.
Leo, we don't shoot threes.
Yes.
You haven't made one all.
You would scream that. Yes, exactly.
What are you doing? I know we're up by 25.
Yep, no doubt. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about reaction from games Tuesdays and from this past weekend. That's our first time. We're going to get right into some hot topics after that. We're going to take a break, come back. BCAM will do their thing, and in the fifth segment, we'll preview the Winter Jam and some other holiday tournament action that's going to be happening between now and January 7th. So that's our show for this week. Let's get right into reaction from games that we had last Friday and also from early this week. We'll start in Division I. And these were some of the things that I've noticed, and we can just talk about them, and you can also throw other ones out there. And some interesting things. Last Friday, number 7 Skyline beat Belleville at home 66-56. Belleville then went ahead and won yesterday. What do we know about this Belleville squad and how they're kind of shaping up?
Obviously, they graduated.
No Bubba.
They graduated a strong group of seniors. Merriweather, who's playing football at Iowa State. They graduated 3 Division I guys, and then
a team that lost at the buzzer in the quarterfinals.
Right. At Callahan Hall. That was against Novi, I believe.
Yeah, Novi. Yeah. Travion Maddox, who just got his first start at OU, scored 12 points.
And who did it 2 games before? They beat Canton at the buzzer, the district, and then they beat Skyline in the regionals at the buzzer.
He had 2 straight pull-ups for winners, and then the team had another buzzer beater to start the state tournament.
Yeah, that was an exciting.
They were on living on a prayer that whole tournament.
I know, it was crazy.
Another guy was getting started, Lamar Norman at Duquesne.
Yeah.
Okay.
Godwin Heights, 2000.
So this version of the Tigers going to have some ups and downs?
I think that, let's say this, as many coaches like to say, it's better to lose in December and January than it is to lose in March.
December basketball right now.
Yeah, so you take your lumps, and it's one of those things. You hope the kids learn from their mistakes, and can kind of put things together, and then also I think you have some bonding that goes on over the course of the season, and as kids, it can only be like a month or 2 months and stuff like that, and all of a sudden the light goes on and. And things get figured out. So I think Belleville will be all right. Adam Trump
with Skyline. Everyone knows about Ryan Wade. The shooting guard / wing. Great on the perimeter, great on defense.
Yep.
A guy that's going to Holy Cross. But who I really like on that team is Deshaun Munson.
I love Deshaun.
He is what I call a Sir Grind-a-Lot.
Yeah,
a guy that's just a workhorse.
Yeah,
he plays bigger than his size. He's only about 6'4", 6'5", but plays like he's 6'8", 6'9".
Yeah, when I first saw Deshaun, I was like, oh, this kid's got to play football. You know? And then more, found out that he's a basketball player. He might have to take an alternative route to a 4-year school. I know that Vincennes they're the number 1 team and number 2 team or something like that in the junior colleges across the country, ranked that high. But I know that they either offered or they got in contact with him, and I also know that there's some other guys that have been in contact with him as well.
And that's a team that didn't lose.
So he's got a lot of opportunities.
Last year they didn't lose into the regional finals, right?
Yeah. To Nova.
And I think when we were there, that was
so that's what Skyline and Belleville have in common. Travion Maddox buzzer beaters to end their 2018 season.
And the link is there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite wrestlers, Missing Link.
Last Friday, obviously,
I was out there.
Big night at Clarkston.
Dan Fife night.
Yep, Dan Fife night. Obviously, a big game, Wayne Memorial. We had him ranked number 2 coming in. Clarkston unranked coming in. Again, December. 60-46 ended up being the final, but
it wasn't close.
Yeah, and
Clarkston imposed their will that entire game.
And just in a not too long time, because I know the event was long, but just your feelings. Obviously, you've covered Clarkston for the majority of your professional career. Whole Fife Field House dedication.
Yeah, so that they didn't just name the floor after him; they named the whole building after him. It's Dan Fife Field House now. They honored Coach Fife, who is just when you say Clarkston, the city, when you say Clarkston basketball, it's synonymous with the Fife name, synonymous with Dan Fife. He's had a storybook career. A guy that started as a player at Clarkston, was an all-state quarterback, all-state shooting guard, all-state pitcher.
Player,
ended up going to the University of Michigan. Was a captain on both the baseball and basketball teams.
Played for the Twins.
Played for the Minnesota Twins. Could have had a pretty decent career. I think he was 4-2 or 4-3, and then he hurt his shoulder in his first year in the league. Came back to Clarkston, and I believe the start of the 82-83 season, and took over the head coaching job. He had been an assistant, I think, for a couple years before that. And, third winningest coach in state history, over 700 wins, 30 league titles, 30 district titles, 15 regional titles, over 700 wins. Everything you could ever want to accomplish, he accomplished. It was very appropriate that they would have a Dan Fife night early in the season. He retired back in the fall, gave the keys of the program over to Timmy Wasilk, who was someone that had played for him in the 1990s, had been the head of the girls program at Clarkson for about 10 years, came over to the boys program as an assistant the last couple of years, kind of being groomed to take the reins. And it was a special night. I mean, they probably had about, I'm not exaggerating, they had almost 100 former players of Dan's that came back to honor him, some coming as far as California and Texas. They did it was kind of hard when you're just looking at the grandstand because there's so many people, but then when they called all the ex-players down to the floor to do a picture with Dan, you could see how many there were. Yeah. And I'm talking about guys that ranged in age from 50 to 18 or 19.
Yeah.
What I thought was one of the really cool parts was that you had the principal of the high school when Dan was there, the person that hired Dan originally and was his principal as a student, who came back and gave some words. And then you had the captain from the 1964 Clarkson team, where Dan was a freshman, his first year playing varsity basketball, a guy that he really looked up to, came back and got to honor Dan with along with his kids and his wife and his grandkids. It was just a really cool experience to be there and see the connection that the city has with the coach and what the coach has with the city. It's going to be strange, not seeing Dan. It is strange not seeing Dan Fife on the sidelines. But I'll end with this. One of the really something that I'm really excited about was, and I've said this I think a couple times on our broadcast, and I'm glad I was wrong. So when I interviewed Dan after his retirement back in September, he said, Bernie, don't expect to really see me around the program. It's going to be too hard. I don't want to, be a looming shadow over Timmy. I don't want to. It's going to be too hard to watch the games. I'm probably just going to kind of step away. And then I've been to a couple games. He's been at every game. And I talked to him, and I talked to Tim Wasilk, and kind of what he was envisioning. Like I said, luckily for everyone involved, that's not what happened. He's still around the program. He's coming to every game. He's coming to practices. He's running their McGrath Little League on Saturdays, which he started. And I talked to Timmy Wasilk after the game. And by the way, Clarkson's playing great right now, playing some of the best basketball in the entire state after starting 0-2. And there were a lot of questions about where that program was going. And he said, I sat Coach down before the season and said, I want you here. I don't feel like you're a looming presence. I don't feel like you're that I'm in your shadow all the time.
It's all love.
I want you here. I want you to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
And Dan's embraced it, and now he's kind of there on the sidelines, or not on the sidelines, but in the grandstand, rooting on the team, rooting on Timmy, and then he's there to at practices, kind of being able to chime in. And Clarkson's playing great basketball right now. And that the final thing I will say is that Fletcher Lawyer, Foster's brother.
Yep.
What I was told about him coming into the season was that he's a shooter, and don't expect to see the playmaking that you saw from Fletcher. Don't expect to see Fletcher the playmaker the way that Foster the playmaker was. But it's not what I've seen. It flies in the face of what I was being told, because Fletcher Lawyer is a playmaker. He's not just a shooter. Against Wayne Memorial, had 21 points, 8 assists. Was diming out, had a drove baseline, gave kind of a no-look wraparound pass to Nicholson for a dunk, had another steal and alley-oop to Nicholson for a dunk, and then the play that I was really impressed by was final seconds of the third quarter, loose ball, Fletcher dives on the floor for the loose ball and then kind of touch passes it to a teammate who hits like a 5-footer at the buzzer to go into the fourth quarter, and that is a freshman that's playing like a senior.
Yeah.
So Fletcher Lawyer is kind of that next incarnation of the Lawyer basketball tradition, and it's going to be just as juicy and just as exciting as what we had.
Well, that's awesome. They win by 14 over Wayne Memorial. Then they win by 21 on Tuesday over Lake Orion, 58-37.
And Lake Orion's good.
I think Fletcher had 18 or 19 in that game as well.
Okay.
So they lost those first 2 games of the season, and now they're blowing teams out. They're winning every game by double digits.
The light goes on.
Yeah,
exactly. When kids figure it out.
They figured it out.
They're like, wow, man, there are a lot of people in these stands. That's going to keep on happening,
Well, one that was a lot closer was our number 3 team, UD Jesuit, and Detroit Catholic Central last Friday.
Yes.
That was a 1-point victory for them, 60-59.
I heard the house was rocking at CC.
Oh, I bet. And I think that last 30 seconds or something like that, UAD was up by 1, CC comes back. UAD comes back, and I think it was Jordan Montgomery that wound up hitting the.
I think did Daniel Friday not play in that game?
Daniel Friday did not play. Neither did Jalen.
Right.
So
we're going to talk about Jalen a little later in the show and get into our hot topics coming up. Game last night that you and I were both there was, when we say last night, we mean Tuesday. Number 6 Cass Tech takes down number 5 King at home, 55-41. Joshua Harris, man, that was one. That was the guy who was just, you talk about just hitting from downtown, really Cass, making some great plays.
6'4" senior.
Yes, obviously Whitfield.
Jordan Whitfield.
Yeah, was couple just great jams just to get the crowd going, and really dictated the action. Swarming on defense, played well.
I think they did a great job of trapping when they came out in that second half.
Yes,
that was, I think, what Cass was up by 10, real low scoring first quarter,
real low scoring,
and then second quarter wound up picking up a little bit.
Yeah, it was a good back and forth threes going on each side.
Hey, whatever you can do, and you really saw the rivalry between the two teams. The third quarter, Cass was like, "Hey, this is our house." I got to talk to Steve Hall and Diamond Press or whatever they were doing, but they did a great job of flipping that boy many a times and wound up getting plenty of fast break points off of it, which was the difference in the third quarter. And then they wound up keeping that 15-14 double-digit lead well into the fourth quarter and wound up winning by
I think we're going to see Cass rise in those rankings.
I think that was a big win for them.
Yes.
They're still thinking about their loss to Carmen Ainsworth. They had a 14-15 point lead in that game and they wound up losing it.
Yeah.
And I think that, guys, they got to figure things out. Coaches can only do so much, so when these players, when they figure it out, but I think that Cass, when they can go out there and they can trap because they can, we see they're getting tired, we can do wholesale substitutions and we're going to bring in another 5 guys. And they all have size. I'm not sure that they have a player on their team that's under 6 foot.
Right.
So when you range from 6 foot to 6'7", you've got a couple of juniors on the team who can come in there and really get some stuff done. But they're all seniors, or for the vast majority of all seniors and juniors on that team.
It is.
So that extra veteran leadership right there goes a long way.
George Ward was beside himself.
Yeah.
He just, for whatever reason, King just could not get anything going. Like you said, it was the one guard that was basically keeping him in the game.
Jordan Whitford?
No.
Number 4.
Yep.
Ziegler?
I'm going to look it up while you're talking.
Yep. It slips my mind. But he did a great job. I think it was in the second quarter, third. He was the one that kept that game from being a 30-point.
He did.
A 30-point loss.
Yeah.
But Cass wound up. And the thing about this game is, and I kind of have to think about who George Ward is, who coached him, Ben Kelso.
Right.
And I have to think about the Detroit Southwestern teams going and beating Cooley. But then when it comes around to March, then all of a sudden Cooley's wound up, hey, we're going to the not at the time, they're not going to the
They're going to Chrysler or the Palace.
So, I'm winning 3 straight then. And
I think George was the captain of the second of the 3. I think he was on the first 2.
I think he graduated.
And then Michael Talley, his senior year, was the year after that.
But also with that, they could play 4 times this year.
Yes.
Twice during the regular season. Next game will be at King somewhere in the new year, 2019.
Yep.
And then they'll wind up more than likely playing again in the city playoffs.
Yep.
And then they're in the same district, so how that's going to be nice and fun. For everybody. So and that is the marquee game of the PSL. Not saying that the PSL is what they used to be, but they'll figure it out, and just like to see a couple of more tighter games. I've also heard Northwestern's been playing real well. I'm going to check them out in the very near future. I heard their guard playing
and
what do we got, number 4?
I told him that I was going to give him a shout out today, and that is good old Curtis Stove.
Yeah,
he's hit me up. So he's his
Kurt McGirt.
Yes, exactly. His comments were that Cass has got Douglas. On Thursday. I think it's Thursday or Friday.
Yep.
December 20th. So that's Thursday.
2 of the best sophomores in the state. Omar Ziegler for King and Pierre Brooks for...
Pierre's out for another couple of weeks.
Okay. So he says Douglas starts 4 seniors and a freshman, 6'5" big Franco Rosa. Cass has, obviously, Acuff and Tyrone and...
Khalil
Whitehead was going to Chicago State.
Yep.
As well as Daniel
Autry.
And that was that's another thing that's scary about Cass, because Autry didn't necessarily shoot the ball very well yesterday.
Yeah.
Harris shot the ball very well.
Yes.
And when you have guys that are out there who can step out there and make jumpers, and they could put it down on the floor a little bit. Oh man, that's they're far from a one-trick pony.
Yeah, and then he talks about Davon Allen, who finished second in the PSL track and field finals for high jump in 2018.
Wow.
For Douglas. So he's throwing out his. He said it's going to be an orange out, and it's an upset alert.
If you can look underneath that paint a little bit and you can still see a little bit of blue and yellow.
Yeah.
Murray Wright.
Murray Wright, baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's some awesome games going on
Robert,
that place.
the tractor trailer.
Yeah.
Ed
Carlos
Norvell.
Medlock. Yeah.
Yes,
Tons of guys.
That was right when state champ started.
Mm-hmm.
And
You should play country music to get all the fans out.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah,
hey, 5:15. Ding, ding, ding,
I
ding.
saw it was a King Murray Wright game. We did our game of the week. I think it was 0-3, and oh man, but the biggest brawl broke out in that place, and it was like I think it was me and Tom Markowski were the two white people in the entire facility. But what a great game that was,
like
and it was, and yeah, it was.
Bright Stars.
They got it. It was great. It just kind of added to it, and then but the game still was awesome.
What's wrong with Pierre
And Benny
Brooks?
King was going crazy.
Benny White.
Benny White, sorry.
Benny King too.
He's got like a leg injury or something, but it's nothing that's serious. It's more precautionary. I'm going to make sure that everything is 100% healed instead of having it become a nagging injury.
Yeah.
Again, Pierre's only a sophomore. Mm-hmm. He's got Division I offers. So whenever you can see kids can't do a lot for their parents, but
His dad is the
if
former,
you can get them a scholarship, then that's probably the best you can do.
Dad played at King and coached at King, right?
I know he did coach at King, won a city title.
Yeah.
That was with the North Fleet days and Malik Albert. I either played at Northern or he played at King. I think it might have been King though.
Pontiac wins again on Tuesday, this time in overtime on the road versus Ferndale, 72-67. So they're 7-0. Good wins against Clarkson. Now Ferndale, because Ferndale's the team we have talked about. What's up with Pontiac?
The Yak is back.
The Yak is back.
Coach Schroeder, coming over from Rochester College, where he had been an assistant for Garth Pleasant in the men's program and had been the head coach of the women's program at Rochester College. Has also been at Glen Oaks, I believe, as a head women's coach and assistant boys coach. It's just took him a couple years to get everything implemented and everyone buying in, and they're off and running this year.
The fact they have 7 games before December 25th is pretty good.
Right. Somebody's looking for a nice Christmas vacation.
I talked to Coach Schroeder actually today and talked to him a little about his team, and he said that he's getting contributions from guys that have really made big strides in their development as basketball players. The guy he really wanted to point out was DeQuavion Cole, who's been their leading scorer. They call him DQ. DQ Cole, a guy that, according to Coach Schroeder, shed about 20, 30 pounds, grew about 2 or 3 inches, and it is really just, has a license to thrill this year. A kind of guy that is doing it all, hitting the glass, scoring on the perimeter, doing it on the defensive side of the floor. He's got his school's quarterback on the football team, Dominique Stovall, who's kind of a defensive stopper, a guy that's going to patrol the paint. Got a nice point guard in E.J. Simpson, and then they got DQ's first cousin, Davion Cole, who's been another real nice piece of the puzzle. And they beat Ferndale in overtime. Ferndale, a little update on where Ferndale is in terms of their transfer situation. They got five pretty high-profile four of the 5 kids that came over from East English Village are all Division I prospects, but they had 5 kids that came over from East English Village, along with Coach Juan Rickman, who took the Ferndale job over the summer. None of those kids have been eligible up until last night on Tuesday night. The first kid got eligible. Sudie McElroy was ruled eligible, I guess, like 45 minutes before the game.
Oh my gosh!
Nice.
So they got one of the 5 on the floor, and I guess Sudie was a big reason that Ferndale was able to keep that game close, and they got into overtime. And Coach Schroeder said McElroy was shooting the ball really well. A guy that's 6'5", 6'6", maybe even 6'7", plays on the outside, can really bomb away from 3-point distance. So we were talking about the OA Blue Race being kind of Ferndale's to lose. I don't know what the deal with the rest of those kids are, but what I do know is that Pontiac is for real, and they're going to be in the mix.
They should be
in the mix, if not at the front of the pack. And then Oxford is a team that is going to make noise in the OA Blue with Trey Townsend and Mike Raish.
Love them. Love Townsend.
So it should be, maybe at the start of the season, I was telling everyone that as long as Ferndale has their transfers eligible, it will be a one-team race.
Right.
But I think I'm going to walk that back a little bit and think even if Ferndale does have all their kids eligible, I think Oxford and Pontiac will be right there in the race for the OA Blue title. And the OA Blue is going to be probably a lot tougher, will be a lot tougher than it's ever been.
Well, that's great. And again, it's not about how you finish, it's about how you finish.
And Pontiac
so those teams are going to be battle tested, ready for the playoffs.
And Pontiac's in Class B or Division 2.
Right, yeah.
So they just moved down last year.
Yeah.
I talked to Coach Schroeder about the district, and it's a wide open district. It's Cranbrook, Country Day, them, and Notre Dame Prep. So any one of those 4 teams could come out of there.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's
and it's
good stuff.
Just like we were saying last week about it's good for the Catholic League that Brother Rice is good in basketball. It's good for Metro Detroit, period, and good for OAA athletics in general.
Yeah.
When Pontiac basketball
exactly.
is at the on par,
especially
with what Pontiac basketball
now
has
that
been
it's
in
one
the
school.
past.
Come on,
need to get Southfield on board.
I
there
know.
were,
I know.
For pretty much time immemorial in Michigan,
I know.
up until the last 10 years,
Yes.
the meccas of basketball in the state of Michigan, there were 4 meccas. There was Detroit, there was Flint, there was Saginaw, and there was Pontiac.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Pontiac could go head to head with any one of those other 3 areas.
Absolutely.
In terms of
two-time back-to-back championships.
last time a Class A team, Clarkson just did it, but before Clarkson did it, the last Class A team to go back-to-back, 2001, 2002, Pontiac Northern.
Back in the day, Frank Orlando used to talk about in Hamtramck, the Pontiac kids would come and they would play, and they had what's now Hamtramck High School, and they had these outdoor courts, kind of like a Rucker Park kind of setup. And he said he'd be like one of the only white guys playing a little Jewish kid, but he was a baller.
So much tradition.
And he said those Pontiac kids would come in, man, and it was just like it's on.
So much tradition
like
in
Donkey Kong
in that
on.
city.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember being a kid, a teenager, going to some of those Pontiac Central, Pontiac Northern games, and just the electricity that was in those gyms, and then obviously the talent on the floor was something that was just so special. And we kind of had, Pontiac, the school district, has had the issues they've had. They've gone from the 2 schools about 7-8 years ago to the 1 school.
For 4,000 students, about 700.
Yeah. So Coach Rob Rogers was there, the guy that led Northern to those 2 straight state championships in the early 2000s, was there when the merger first happened. Then he left, and I don't know if there was someone in between. Oh, there was. Well, Kelso was there.
Yep.
So, and Kelso had a couple teams that were competitive.
Yeah, before Southfield, before he came to Southfield.
No, it was after Southfield.
Oh, it was after.
It was
okay.
before his son. It was before he moved his son to Wall Lake Northern and then to West Bloomfield.
Oh, yeah.
Now the Kelsos are at a prep school in New York, where Coach Kelso is coaching and Jalen is playing. But what I'm saying is that when Ben Kelso was there, Pontiac was respectable. They weren't at the level of what we expected Pontiac basketball to be. This team is 7-0, and I think has the chance to really put together a gaudy record. They could finish the season 18-2.
All right, well, that's good. All right.
17-3.
Number 1 Muskegon lost in their opener against Rockford last Friday.
I thought that I was being such a smart guy, but I was
65-47.
like, they're the only ones who haven't lost.
Right.
Like I've got a shaky hand when I'm doing the Division I rankings.
I know.
I was like, hey, let's put Muskegon. They haven't played a game, so they haven't lost.
I hear you.
And then they wound up getting stomped pretty well.
They did. They bounced back, had a 62-43 win over Grand Haven on Tuesday. So we'll now see. I'm sure that they'll fall off their perch for a little while when we see our rankings next week. Grand Blanc beat Flint Carmen and Ainsworth on Friday, 56-46. We had Ainsworth number 4.
Yeah, they're good. It is what it is. I mean, it's good. It's good news for UD Jesuit, and it's good news for Cass Tech. But right now, I think that's one of the underlying rivalries. Carmen Ainsworth and Grand Blanc. I mean, football, basketball. I mean, just a ton of different sports. Was I expecting Grand Blanc to win that game? No.
And
maybe later on, because I think Kevin David
digits.
Rice is still out, and so he's not going to be back until I believe January 5th.
That's Glenn. That's Glenn's kid, right?
That is Glenn
Rice's son
nephew.
Or nephew.
Yes. Kevin Rice would be the father.
Okay, right.
All right. Well, and speaking of that, on the same line, we talked about Brother Rice. It's good when they're good. Well, Orchard Lake St. Mary's beat them by 33.
And that game was close,
Friday.
I think, through the first half. And then in the second half, Orchard Lake opened up a can, as they say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did Brantley play? Brantley,
I believe John Brantley played. And but Orchard Lake is a team that is going to be a contender this year.
Yeah.
They got Lauren Bowman, which everyone knows about, the Wisconsin commit, maybe the best shooter in the state.
A couple transfers that were there that are eligible now, sophomores.
Okay. Yeah, they got the two African kids that came in last year as freshmen and couldn't play. The one is better than the other. Peter Nwoki, their center, 6'7", sophomore in the middle. But then they got the Rozier brothers, and Kareem Rozier is one of the best freshman point guards that I've seen in a long time. You want to talk about a tremendously high hardwood IQ for a kid who's only 14 or 15 years old.
It seems like there are a lot of really good point guards.
Yeah.
We got to see. Remember we talked about Young with Silk earlier.
Chase with Silk and Fletcher
show.
Lawyer.
We got Orlando Lovejoy, who's putting up robot numbers at Romulus Summit Romulus Summit Academy, where Mark White just won his 250th.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in Hot Topics.
Yep. And then you also have, we just saw the little young point guard from King last night, Chauncey.
Yes.
Who's not bad at all. We wound up hitting some huge shots in King's win a couple weeks ago. And they played at depth.
Yeah. So, in Division II, number 4 New Haven beat Grosse Pointe South 6-8, 6-2. Close game. Blue Devils, in kind of looking at what their development has been, they've won 3 in a row. Beat Chip Valley, Seaholm, and Romeo. Obviously, good teams.
Yeah.
Almost pulled this one off, and they beat Anchor Bay to open the year. So, GP South playing well and obviously hanging with a really good New Haven squad.
And for New Haven, I just got to...
They're going to get everybody's best.
Yeah, and I said it, I think, last week when I talked about Romeo. I mean, you know what you're going to get from Romeo Weems. But Ronnie Jeffrey, the other senior on that team, another co-captain, a 4-year starter, kind of came in with Romeo and obviously has taken a back seat in terms of publicity-wise. But Ron Jeffrey is a playmaker. He's a difference maker.
Okay.
On the wing, on the defensive side of the ball, a kid that's just very active, high motor, isn't a big talker, just lets his game do the talking, and is a really nice compliment to Romeo Weems. And I saw he had 26 last night in that game.
Cool. Number 2, Wayne Memorial bounced back from the 14-point loss to Clarkston. They dropped 91
Isaiah Lewis.
on Dearborn.
Isaiah Lewis dropped a 50 bomb.
50 points last night.
50
and he hit 1,000-point
and a
mark
1,000-point
on
mark.
19 of 31 shooting.
Yeah. Wow. Which is what I love to see.
Isaiah Lewis,
I love
6'1" guard, shooting guard from Wayne.
There's nothing that I love more when it comes to backcourt prospects than efficiency.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how many points you scored. Tell me what your shooting percentage was.
Yeah.
And a guy that can get 50 on 19 of 31.
I'm going to see him tomorrow. They've got Westland John Glenn, so that's my prep for our summer.
You also get to see Joe Moon.
Yes, exactly.
And I'll tell you what, in that game, you've got 2 of the state's probably top 5 unsigned seniors in that class. And if I'm looking around, if I'm in the GLIAC, if I've got a scholarship to give, I'm like, hey, you can. I mean, that game right there is almost 1 bird and 2 stones because you've got Joe Moon as a point guard and Isaiah, who can play the point but is more off the ball.
And Josh said he needs a point guard here at Lawrence Tech.
Look at that. Wow, look at the wonderful plug right there. That's great. Are you talking about Josh Pickens?
Yes,
the head coach at Lawrence Tech?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wow. I wonder if he's got Juan Young's number.
Exactly. Well, he's going to see him Saturday when Moon's here.
They just got one of
or Rod Watt's number at John Glenn.
They just got one of Oakland County's best big guys in Gunnar Gustafson from Milford, who's
I think that's
a walking, talking double-double. And you want to talk about a kid with a motor. This kid's got a motor times 10.
Did he? I think he might have won he was really close in winning the 800 meters for track.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But he's the one guy. You're 6'6". I look at a whole bunch of kids.
I think he's more like 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, but let's say this: he's 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah,
he's got a great frame.
Filled out.
You could put a coat on him and stuff like that. And that sucker's come back 3 or 4 years later, and it's going to be like a pristine shape.
I mean, he's just as good, and you could argue that he's better than Nate Talbot, the center from Lake Orion that's going to Wayne State. Right. So it shows you what a great grab that is for Coach Pickens and Lawrence Tech.
Yep. Division III, Corunna beats number 9 Flint Hamady by 10 in Hamaday's house
my
last
man
Friday.
My man Rocky Buscemi.
Yeah,
and then Tuesday, Wall Lake Northern defends home court over Hamady and beats them 63-54.
I tell you, this whole season is getting even that much more fun. Rocky Buscemi up at Corunna has done a great job. Sage Walker wound up transferring back to Ithaca, but he still has Logan LePage on the team. I mess with him and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he's one of those guys, a 4-year starter, 6'3", 6'4", great grades. Kid can score it, and he's athletic. I mean, he's one of those. He'll definitely have an opportunity to play.
Rocky comes from the Catholic League. He was at Detroit Loyola. Yep. I actually played against him in high school when he was the point guard at St. Clement.
Nice.
Faced off in the district finals back in the 90s.
St. Clement.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And
cool. You gave him buckets?
Well, it's funny. The first couple of years I'm covering him, I knew him as when I'm covering him, I know him as John Buscemi. But when I was a kid, I knew him as Rocky Buscemi. And then we were somewhere and someone referred to him as Rocky. And I was like, is John Buscemi and Rocky Buscemi the same person? He's like, yeah, that's me. I was like, we played against each other back in the day.
Yeah, he's posting you up?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. In Division 4, we had some other upsets. Number 8 Hillsdale Academy falls big to number 9 Athens, 55-24.
Yep.
Granted, those two were 8 and 9, but 55-24 is pretty considerable.
I tell you what. Athens, and then if you want to keep on going,
I will. Get to that. Number 3, Battle Creek St. Philip loses by 35 to unranked Bellevue.
Yes.
And then, of course, Mount Clemens is a team that we will have in our showcase that is got some work to do because Southfield Christian played like Southfield Christian, and they won 81-25.
Last week. Southfield Christian, that was a statement win at home. As I'm looking through, and I'm just like, wow, I was like, Athens is beating the brakes off of teams. Yeah. Bellevue is beating the brakes off of teams. They'll definitely be in my top 10, probably top 5. I'm really looking for, I think they play in late January and then mid-February. But Athens and Belleville is probably going to be the Division 4 games of the week when they play that week because they're both beating teams by 30, 35 points. I don't think either team has lost or won by anything less than 30. And I think that's great for the Southern Central Athletic Association, which they are affiliated with. The Battle Creek St. Phillips, they've got they've got to play both teams twice.
I thought they only played volleyball at Battle Creek.
Yeah, I know exactly. You had them ranked 3rd.
Yeah, they were rocking and rolling. It's one of those things. I guess Bellevue and Athens are. I'm trying to figure. I've got to make a trip over west of the Irish Hills and.
You want to talk about a kid that Coach Pickens and Lawrence Tech should be in on, and a kid that I consider a real supersonic sleeper special. Okay, cool. A kid that really didn't play until his senior year, and now he's playing out of his mind. Is John Sanders over at Southfield Christian? Everyone knows about Bubba Humphrey. John Sanders didn't get a lot of clock last year. He's averaging close to 20, and this kid gets out on the open floor and jams it in your face. He's got some of the best hops. He's a pogo stick in terms for a kid that's only about 6'2". Wow. This kid jumps out of the gym.
All right. Good.
Right.
I look forward to see Southfield Christian. Yeah. And that's what Southfield Christian is also going to need. It's hard to be a one-man team and really go out there and make a run for the state championship. And to see Sanders, what he's doing, is going to be a wonderful compliment to Humphrey, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to our first timeout, let's quickly get into some hot topics. U of D's Jalen Terry committing next week.
That's Beecher's Jalen Terry.
Yep.
Oh,
Jalen Thomas.
Sorry.
Yep.
Beecher's Jalen Terry is committing next week.
Yeah, December 27th. It's either he's got 5. And
best point guard in the state.
Arguably, yes.
He's my best point guard.
Yeah. He could.
But he's got his options.
Yeah, Michigan State being one. He just took a visit there last week. Iowa State, where fellow Beecher Man Morris wound up going. Missouri is also involved. Cornell Mann, who was at Iowa State, recruited Man Morris to Iowa State. He's now an assistant at Missouri. Then you also have Mississippi State, where Ernie Ziegler is a coach. And then finally, I'm trying to remember Iowa, who I know that was in on him early, as a freshman, as a sophomore, because they get to see Iowa State.
Is Ernie the assistant or the head?
He's the assistant. Okay.
So is there any news that you've heard as to where he's leaning?
I think, let's say this, for all 5 schools, there are great reasons, Iowa being there pretty much from day one. Mississippi State, obviously the link, there with Ernie Ziegler. Cornell man, I imagine that, when Monty Morris comes back, he's got nothing but great things to say about assistant coach at Missouri.
Yeah.
But then you also have Iowa State, and Man Morris is probably saying pretty good things about them. And then you've obviously, you've got, the two Big Ten schools with Iowa and Michigan State.
If you had to gut it,
I would have loved to see Michigan State years ago take Monty Morris. I don't think that they lose to Middle Tennessee State in the first round if they have him and Yante Maton. Right. But that's none of my business.
Right.
When we're talking about Michigan State and Jalen Terry possibly landing there, doesn't the fact that their point guard situation might not play into that? Because you got Rocket Watts coming up behind Cassius,
Rocket still has to
behind
sign.
Foster. Are you saying that you don't think it's necessarily a solid commitment?
He's given a verbal commitment, but when the opportunity to sign was there, he didn't sign. And I think they did. There are plenty of.
So you got 3 point. I mean, if he signs, you got 3 really good point guards that still have eligibility left.
That would be a very strong possibility. I would also think that Jalen could probably play off the ball a little bit. He shoots the ball, fairly well. He could defend either, guard position. Where I think Foster is a strict one. Yeah. We've seen Foster and Cassius on the court.
Foster just hit double digits for the first time in his career.
Yeah,
he had a little bit of a rough start to the first couple weeks of the season. I'm glad to see.
He's just a week later than his brother, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played well. He's played well. Romulus Summit Academy coach Mark White just won his 250th game.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to talk to him the other day. He told me that he wanted to get to 250 wins before he got to 50 losses, and he's got 49 losses. So that's not bad. I was like, hey, and you did it before you got an AARP card? That's not too bad right there.
Right.
And so, but he's really excited with, with Orlando Lovejoy, his point guard, who's been putting up great numbers.
He's averaging like 30 a night.
Yeah, and so.
As a freshman, floor general.
As a freshman, but you're talking about a guy.
What division are they?
They are they're Division 2, I believe.
2, okay.
Yep. He's 2-time state champion, 3-time PSL champion, River Rouge.
Took River Rouge to the Final Four the last 2 years. 2 years.
2 years, okay. Yeah, so.
It was great, obviously, with Renaissance.
Those Renaissance
in their heyday.
Those Renaissance teams.
Southeastern.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Those Renaissance teams that had Tawan Porter, Malik Hairston, and Joe Crawford.
Sure, we can't stop there. Carson Butler,
yes.
Marcus Strout. That was one of the best teams that I've ever seen play, not just in the PSL.
Adam Sabri.
One of the best teams I've seen in the MHSA in my 20, 25 years watching basketball around here.
And Will Golston was on his Southeastern teams, right?
Yep, that was on the Southeast with Brandon Kearney and Percy Gibson.
Yeah.
So,
but those Renaissance teams were nationally ranked.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, they were. Even the PS. I remember watching the PSL championship game versus Denby, and they beat the brakes off of Denby. And Denby, I think, was top.
I want to say 2003 PSL championship at Cobo Hall. A newly crowned mayor and Kwame Kilpatrick in attendance, and that was one of the again, getting a chance to be, that was really my first experience at Cobo in that kind of in an environment, and it was just, I think they were eighth in the country at the time. I remember seeing Mark White in the bathroom before the game, and I walked in and I was like, hey, coach, and I remember I was like, man, this is kind of a big deal for us, state champs, who's there filming this. And he's like, yeah, it's a big deal for me too.
I remember.
He's like, there's a lot of eyeballs on this game, because at that time he really had aspirations that he was going to jump into the college ranks and just blow up from there. Unfortunately, it didn't.
I went to Adrian College, but I don't think that leap to a Division I. And I think that the other thing is, sometimes coaches don't want to piggyback off of their players. Hey, well, I'm going to go to Kentucky with Joe Crawford. Or I'm going to go to Oregon with Malik Hairston or a number of these schools and stuff like that, and kind of say, this is what I've done. I don't want to act like there's anything funny going on here and stuff like that. And sometimes it's all about opportunity and timing a lot of times with coaches. We just talked about Nate Oates.
Yep.
And Bobby Hurley doesn't get a job at Arizona State after having a couple of years of success.
Yes.
And if Buffalo doesn't have the faith in turning it over to Nate, they could have gone out and got another guy that had head coaching
because he said, I'm bringing Wes Clark in. That's what he said. Yes. He's like, your brother's the reason E.C. Matthews is over there.
I was
went over there cracking knuckles.
Quick little anecdote about my first first glance at Mark White. I went to see one of those games. I think it might have been the PSL title game. Maybe it was a district title game. It was with that Harrison Crawford Porter team, and everyone
And the other Crawford.
Yes.
And they won the game, and it was kind of like the aftermath of the game where all the faithful, the Renaissance people are kind of huddled around the team.
Sure.
And these little kids are just jumping up and down. And Mark White goes up to one of the kids and says, "You want some of this, don't you? You want to be part of this, don't you? So you're going to be part of this." And I was like, that was kind of cool that he was like getting with the 11, 12-year-old kids being like, this is something that we're building. And when you're, 3 or 4 years from now, you can be doing just what these other kids are doing.
And so it was our big boy game of the week. And here I am trying to stage something. So I have Joe and Malik after the game where say like, man, I love McDonald's. He's like, but there's nothing like Big Boy or something like that. So it was, it was like it was like a fairy tale kind of like time. That was just, where it was just so big, high school basketball at that point in the city.
It was also
to win that title.
It was before social media.
It's like it's almost bigger than a state championship.
For a lot of people in the city, if it's not bigger, it's just as important.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's bragging rights.
Right. I'll tell you
King of
this.
the city.
I joke with Steve Hall about a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, you walk around because he won a city championship with Cass.
Yes,
He's got
he did.
3 state championships with Detroit Rogers.
With his Class D.
Yeah.
And which is Class D.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, he'll walk around with his chest out,
Oh, yeah.
like state champs, city champs here.
That's right.
State champ is like, hey,
Yeah.
because they were barely finishing 500, or they finished the season 12
Because they were playing
the Crockett's and they were playing other
Yes.
state champions,
Absolutely.
which are loaded, which back then was loaded. Unfortunately, about half those schools have closed.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Southwestern, Cooley, the Mackenzies, the Chadsees,
Yeah.
I mean, it's some crazy stuff. Kettering,
And then they're playing, exactly. Like, the UP team, in the state finals, whatever.
Right.
Shout
It was
out-
then it was City. City was the other
Detroit
one that
City.
was
Yes,
Detroit
and
City.
they wound up winning a class.
They won a
title,
state
too.
championship, too.
Yeah.
Just want to shout out 2 other coaches that reached milestones.
Yeah, go for it.
Steve Emmert, the longtime boys and girls coach. Now he's the girls coach at Walled Lake Western. Is about to win number 400. He went to a state finals with his Walled Lake Central girls team back in '95. Took his '93 team for his boys at Walled Lake Central. Is one of my all-time favorite squads. He took everything that Rick Pitino was doing at Kentucky and he transplanted it into Oakland County, just pressing full court the whole game, shooting 20, 33s a game. Just a really fun, high-energy brand of basketball. They went
Grinnell style.
They went 25-0 until they ran into a number 1 in the country Pershing team that beat them at Callahan Hall in the quarterfinals. But very special team. And then, like I said, Coach Emmert had long tournament runs with boys and girls for Walled Lake Central. Was at Oxford for a while with the girls, and now is at Walled Lake Western. Coached some really good Western teams the last couple of years. So hats off to him for his 400th victory. And then Gary Freilich over at Troy just picked up 400 either Friday or yesterday.
I think it was last.
Over at Troy. He's been at Troy for 25 years. Coached both of his sons. I actually played against him in high school in his first couple of years when it was a game where both his kids were on the floor.
You gave Tim buckets?
Both his kids were on the floor, and my coach's son was on the floor. And I remember the Free Press and News did the whole thing about 3 coaches' kids all being on the floor together and kind of getting to know Coach Freilich. And I knew Coach Emmert when I was a kid, too, because my mom taught with Coach Emmert. So I've known both Coach Emmert and Coach Freilich since I was 14, 15 years old. Both great men, great coaches, the type of guy you want to give your kid to mentor and bring along in the game of basketball, and just really high class individuals.
Yeah, I talked with Coach Freilich earlier today, and I was like, out of all the years, because he coached at Redford Thurston before,
and at Royal Kimball.
But I was like, out of all these years that you've been coaching, I was like, how does last year's Troy team, compare with your top teams? And he said, the last 2 years, those have been his best teams. And you talk about a loaded OAA Red last year where you had Hazel Park that was constantly in the top 5. Obviously Clarkston, the eventual
West
state championship, they were up there.
West Bloomfield, who had just come out of a
there.
Final Four appearance the year before.
Right. So and Troy's out there, and it's like, we just need an extra 4 points if we can get by some of these teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are some exciting teams.
Let me give
and right now he's got Brody Parker.
Yeah,
who's one of the top
best sophomores in the state.
Yeah.
Just a gunner.
Yeah.
As a sophomore, he's averaging about 25 a game already. Mm-hmm. Last year, as a freshman, got minutes, and it seemed like one of those kids that if he got 10 minutes, he was giving you 10 great minutes as a freshman. And for someone that young to go play with a team of all veterans, a team that had those kind of expectations, he was a big reason that those seniors were able to get him to the regional finals last year, and they ended up losing to Clarkston. But just one anecdote that I want to share to close this, to talk about Gary Freilich, and to me, this sums up the type of person Gary is. So if people can recall, 4 or 5 years ago, he developed a talent by the name of James Young, who ended up going to Kentucky, went to a
transferred to Rochester,
and well, that's one of
Sorry,
went to a Final Four.
Yeah.
Got the number 15 pick in the NBA draft. He's bouncing around the G League right now.
Should have stayed in
He's
college.
in Milwaukee now.
So
one of their
James, for whatever reason, and this could be a whole podcast on itself if we wanted to. For whatever reason, James and his handlers decided to move James his senior year from Troy to Rochester. Obviously, this was something that was very upsetting to the Rochester team that had a lot of high hopes and had won, I think, 2 or 3 straight league titles.
You mean the Troy team?
Troy team. Yep.
Sorry, what did I say?
You said the Rochester.
Sorry.
Team. Very disappointing. We're getting
very
King
disappointing
James.
for the Troy team.
Yes.
Because they had a lot of expectations going into that year. So then fast forward 2 years later, after he goes to Rochester, his senior year at Rochester, he takes them to the quarterfinals. Then he goes to Kentucky, takes Kentucky to the NCAA championship game, where he has a great Final Four. And there's talk that he's going to be a first-round draft pick. Yeah. And if people don't know, when you're being touted as a first-round draft pick, the teams do their due diligence and they send out investigators to go talk to everybody in your past to get an idea of what kind of kid, what kind of person they're going to be bringing into the organization, because this is a multi-million-dollar investment.
Yes.
And Gary, from talking to multiple people on this, Gary spoke incredibly highly of James Young and said, I don't want anyone to think that what happened with us at Troy and him leaving had any, has any effect on the way I look at James as a person or as a player. James is the type of kid that you should draft. James is the type of kid that is a good kid, that his heart's in the right place. And even though I didn't end up being his final high school coach, I recommend him and I fully co-sign you drafting him. And I know a lot of coaches that if the roles were reversed and what had happened to Gary had happened to them, and an NBA team is coming to talk to them, they're going to trash the kid. Wow. And that's not in Gary Freilich's. That's not in Gary Freilich's DNA.
And so,
awesome.
And then the
Boston Celtics took him number 15.
And then, I thought it was Knicks.
Celtics.
Okay, all right. Well, I think he should have stayed another year in college. Personally,
he should have. And I've said before that in reality, that Final Four performance when he played so well was probably one of the worst things that could have happened to him, because it gave him the impression that he was ready to go to the pros, and he wasn't.
It's hard to turn down. I know. Let's say
that
this,
kind of money.
It's hard to turn down that kind of money because you've got injuries and stuff like that. I always remember what happened with Kevin Ware, a few years ago with Louisville when he was snapping his leg in half.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where. Yeah. Sometimes you got to strike while the iron.
He would have been benefited from another year, I think there's still a place in the NBA for him. He's
still young.
He caught on with
24 years
caught on with the Philadelphia 76ers at the end of last year. I think played 20 games or so with them. Now he said he's in the Bucks organization. Yep. I know when he's down in the G League, he's excelling in the G League. Yep. I know last year when he got called up by the Sixers, he was averaging like 20 in the G League. So. He obviously has the skill set that I think could make him a long-term pro, and if not, he can go over to Europe and still make a living. But in terms of guys that we've seen in this area in the last 10 years, you got to put James Young up there at the top.
All right, we're gonna take a time out. That was a long segment. It's all good though. This is what we do. We're talking hoops, and we're just going for it. So we're going to take a break. Coming back, it will be our BCAM segment with Dan Young and Matt Mowery. So stick around for that. And then we're going to come right back and close the show. We're going to preview the state champs, Winter Jam, talk about some other holiday tournament action that you can check out over the Christmas break. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
fundraising should be fresh, flavorful, and simple. We have the perfect solution at Hungry Howie's. Dough Raiser. Your team or school can sell paper pizza certificates that can be redeemed for one medium pizza at participating locations.
We've been doing this fundraiser for about 4 years, and it's the easiest and best and most profitable fundraiser they have in Michigan.
Go to doughraiser.com to learn more and sign up. Your next fundraiser comes with flavored crust. Welcome to Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser.
All right, welcome back to Hang Time. This is actually our final Hang Time before we regroup again at the beginning of the year. We welcome in Matt Mowery and Dan Young here for our traditional BCAM segment celebrating the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan, the largest in the country, but of course we're always looking for new members to come on in and participate. We've been talking a little bit about Mr. Basketball, Miss Basketball, some of the hopefuls for the first couple of weeks. We're going to get, since this is kind of a boys heavy centric show, we'll talk a little bit about girls here in this particular section, and you have a little knowledge of that. You are just fresh off coaching a girls team last year in Salem.
Yeah.
You've seen some of these girls, just from a big picture level. And we kind of talked a little bit about this off camera, is the coaching at this level now for the girls. And again, sometimes it's just by happen chance, but you're happening to see it. Just the kind of evolution over the past, say, decade or so. It's really good.
It's really good. I mean, I just talk about our league that I was in a little bit.
The KLA.
Yeah, Brighton and Heartland and Northville and Novi and Wayne Memorial and the park teams, Canton and Plymouth.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of really structured, good fundamentals and good athletes. Yeah, we took our lumps the last couple of years.
Yeah, and we're seeing really, Matt, over the courses, we have our staples, our coaches who've been there a long time. We're going to celebrate, Frank Orlando once again this weekend at the State Champs Winter Jam.
Don
Frank
Palmer's
on
like
Saturday.
935 wins.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say years old. But either way, close.
Pretty much, right? Because he did the boys, girls,
he did
boys,
the boys and girls
that
at Milford.
stretch of 25, 30
Forever,
years.
yeah.
And he's still going at it at Heartland. And
Yeah.
they're younger, but they're
He's got
they're
that
still
program
really
rolling because the feeder system is really starting.
Right.
They're very young this year, but there's just a slew of freshmen who can all play, and it's going to be interesting to see once Whitney Solom, their 6'4" kid, comes back from she had a relatively serious knee surgery that she had back in April, and she should be cleared sometime this month. But it's kind of interesting because they're just growing with those young kids and a couple of juniors. I mean, really, they have no seniors. I think they have one on the team, so it's not. So this is one of those teams that's going to be good this year, and then next year. And they've been good over the last 3 or 4 years. So he's really kind of brought that program to a crescendo. But like you said, that KLA is deep side to side. I mean, both sides have got just stellar teams.
I was talking to one of the Brighton coaches on our board, Dan Christner, and he helps out, I think, at 9th grade level or maybe an assistant. He said that they feel that they have their best team they've ever had. And they just beat Okemos pretty bad last week, and so with a Miss Basketball candidate on it. So, and Wayne Memorial, we saw them up and close last year. They have lots of athletes,
Lots of talent.
Clegg's gone, but you've got the girl that's going to Illinois, and
Janae Terry.
they're very athletic and long, and they play very hard. So,
I would say just from a collective, the talent level, from a young age is coming. We're seeing more and more freshmen now, boys and girls, contributing right away. Unfortunately, now we're losing a lot of them following a couple of years to prep schools, and that's a whole nother show. But we are seeing participation for the girls especially fairly high. And in fact, Edison, who I went and took a look at on Tuesday as they took on a good Ann Arbor Huron team, and credit, the River Rats, they battled back. They were down 20 at the half and made it a game, only ended up losing by 6. But they've got a team. They're so deep. They've got an all-freshman group that they put out there.
That's really good.
That's really good when they end up finding themselves in matchups that they know they're so overqualified for, and they give an opportunity for these girls to play.
Right. Well, and I think the scariest thing about Edison that I pointed out in our top teams thing, they have one senior. One, and it's Rakia Jackson.
Right.
So they're going to be good again for another couple years, if all those kids end up staying there. So and those freshmen move in, and they probably get another core of freshmen right behind them. So it's kind of interesting when you see these programs that every once in a while you see a program that got a really good player and a couple of complementary players, and you go, okay, they'll be good for a year or two, maybe 3, and then those players move on, and they kind of the talent dips back down.
Yeah.
But then you see some of these that have those kind of, they get the feeder systems rolling, like I said with Heartland, that's got kind of that same, and Brighton, and those same things. And
single
that's
school
going to be
communities, and then Edison would be a different situation for.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of a midtown team.
Yep.
It's a nice house. It's a nice gym.
It is very nice.
It's big. They've got
Yep.
kind of like almost a caged off kind of other area that they can use for their filming and that nature. The stands are nice, and on boys and girls they've had state champions. So obviously Detroit Edison is our number one team. You can go to State Champs Network and you can check out the rankings for those, and you put a lot of time into them. I would say Edison as a team, the Rakia stirs the drink. They obviously are very, again, depending on if they're being challenged, how good are they? It's hard to tell sometimes in terms of your schedule. You happen to go this past weekend where they had a showcase going on, and they had some of the best teams, not only from out of state but in the country, and they were beaten.
Well, and they were facing Columbus Afrocentric, which was another. Both of the teams were ranked in the top 5 in ESPNW's high school girls rankings, so you knew it was going to be a pretty good game. They'd played last year at Afrocentric's tournament in late January, and that game went to overtime. I believe it was 65-62, and this one ended up 65-60. So it's almost identical scores, just with the opposite result. But the Afrocentric coach told me that after having tried to run with them last year and speed them up, and realized that wasn't going to work considering all the ball handlers and all of the skilled players that they have, they decided they were really going to slow it down this year. And they have a lot of size on that Afrocentric team. They've got a 6'1" girl who's going to Tennessee. They've got another girl who's going to be a high major who's 6'3". So they had enough size to battle it out in the half court with a Edison team that's really pretty tall. I mean, frankly, when you've got a 6'3" girl, and you've got Gabby Elliott, who's right around 6 foot, and you've got another couple of players who are right in there, they've got their own size. They just don't have maybe that next gear, I guess, in size, and they were really able to pack it in and play half court defense on them. And it was a very good game, but it was one of those where, if Edison can't get out and run and that's how they like to get their juices flowing. That's
the formula.
That's the
right?
lifeblood.
Slow it down.
Yep. Slow it down.
Some clock.
Yeah.
Make them defend.
Yep.
For
and that
sure.
was the formula.
For sure. I saw them getting after it once the game started getting close last night on Tuesday. And, the great thing about watching Rakia, and it really is fun when you get to see, players who you can tell are just
gifted.
Yes, and are going to
Just
make
gifted.
waves at the
Makes
next
it
level.
look
It's
easy.
so fun because you can say, like, wow, I bet when, whoever was me watching Candace Parker, in high school, and you can just see, you see that it's just like, wow, the sky's the limit. I really wanted to see Country Day and Kayla Webb one more year, which would have been really fun for Saturday, but Country Day's picking up the pieces and kind of figuring their thing out. But Rakia, she can beat you outside. Yeah. She goes strong. She'll get her own rebound. She'll fight for it, and but very polished in everything that she does.
She's worked so hard.
It's effortless.
Yep.
Yes.
And so that's just part of it.
Yeah.
So Saginaw Heritage is another team that is
so good.
Defending state champ. They ran the tournament last year.
So fun to watch.
Yeah.
They play so hard. They share the ball.
They play defense.
All athletic. They stay just flat.
Yep.
The ball is always pressured. They rebound as a team. They're really well coached, and they've got a lot of athletes.
Sure.
You can tell they're tuned into each other.
Yeah, and it starts right up front with Mo Joyner. I mean, she's kind of the, as we were talking
Just
about with
gets on the
Rakia,
ball
she's so
she's a
tenacious.
hawk.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's going to be fun to watch at the next level. We've talked about that before when we were talking about the Miss
Sure.
Basketball candidates, because it's going to be fun to watch her hound the ball handlers at the D1 college level. But it's not just her. It's Shine Strickland-Gills, who's, can play a little back to the basket, is very athletic and long, rebounder who's going to Central Michigan. Then they've got Mallory McCartney, who's going to Ferris, who's a sniper from the outside. They've got Lauren Reed, who can, take some of the ball handling responsibilities away from Joyner to kind of divvy those up. And it's another team that's going to be right where they were last year. They're going to be pushed in the valley, frankly, because
their path is right.
Yeah.
Don't they? Who would be their in the state tournament? Who would they run into?
Well, they're going to run into Carmen Ainsworth even earlier than they did last year. That, I think, was the regional final last year, and Carmen Ainsworth is kind of the powerhouse in the south end of the valley. They've got Destiny Strother, who's going to Marquette, that's another very talented team.
So
they've got
in the regionals.
Yeah, I think they're actually in the same district this year. I'd have to go back and check. And another team that will be right on Heritage's tail is Midland Dow, who's got Maisie Taylor, who's going to Northwood, and Molly Davis, who's going to Central. And that's a team that gave them they gave them the toughest of any game that Heritage had throughout the tournament. Just looking at the point differentials,
Good
Dow
matchup,
Dow and Districts was the toughest game for them. So it'll be I believe Carmen Ainsworth would be before Dow this year, where they were in the same district with Dow last year. Class A, as always, is one of those where there are so many contenders. I mean, even East Lansing, that lost a ton from last year, has come out strong this year and has beaten, a number of teams. They beat DeWitt, which bumped up into the CAAC Red, and DeWitt was a team that went, basically, other than the two losses to East Lansing, they went perfect the rest of the way.
Bill McCullen's a Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
BCAM, our new president-elect.
There you go.
Oh,
there you go.
Good guy.
Well,
great coach.
We've got Southfield A&T right behind them, and for those who don't remember, Southfield Lathrop and Michelle Marshall, she now was, obviously a power for so long, and they were a team very reticent of what Edison would do, run and gun, slash, just wear you
press
out.
You.
Yeah, press you, exactly. Very, very much along those lines. And you've got them ranked 3.
I've got them ranked 3. Yeah, they're going to be probably the class of Oakland County this year, especially since Country Day maybe has taken a step back, but is still Country Day. Yeah, they've got
15 straight districts is what they captured. So that's impressive when you really think about it. And obviously that dates back to Southfield Lathrop.
Yep. And the first year they combined into the Southfield and Southfield Lathrop combined, they ended up with Deja Church, who's now at Michigan, ended up going all the way to the semis where they lost to East Kentwood. But they've got probably the most talented team since then. They've got Keanu Willis, who started last year as a freshman on the point. They've got Alexis Johnson up front, who's going to Marshall. They got Cheyenne McEvans, who's got a billion-and-one, D1 offers and is just all kinds of athletic.
There are a lot of girls that are getting scholarships.
Yes.
Well,
that's what I was saying.
It's not just you.
No,
you look at our boys Mr. Basketball list, and you look at our girls Miss Basketball, and it seems like there's just a lot of good players who are getting opportunities to play the next level.
Right.
Well,
and it's not
20
just,
plus.
And it's not just. Granted, we have our plethora going to the MAC schools and even some of our big teams. Well, you've got obviously Mississippi State, which is number one. You've got Clemson.
Yep.
That people are going.
Illinois, we've got Sever.
Exactly.
Now,
Illinois.
Yes.
Right.
I just posted the top 100 players list the other night, and of our top 10, we had Mississippi State, and then Susie cleaned up at Michigan State, Northwestern, Marquette, Illinois. But when you look at the Division I kids, you got all the way down to right around 40, 43, where you started running out of those D1 kids or kids that you know down the road. Like
40 plus or D1?
Our D1 kids or have a lot of D1 offers. Where,
So,
and just
potential.
So, like Demia Hageman, who obviously is a sophomore at
that's
Edison,
tremendous.
who is going to be high level.
That's tremendous. That's so good to hear for our
and,
state.
And the crop of freshmen that you have now that are playing at such a high level.
Right.
Who
are already getting, noticed.
Exactly. So wait for a couple more years. This list is not going to change.
After that, you've got the slew of D2s where you've got the Northwoods and the Hillsdales and the Grand Valleys and the Ferrises. Yep. And
Wayne State.
So you can go all the way down to probably 60 or 70 where you've got you've got a bunch just of scholarship athletes.
It's exciting.
So
it really is.
Yeah, and it's one where you post one of those lists and inevitably you get somebody who thinks, so-and-so should be a little higher. Well, all these kids, you look at them and they all deserve to be on these lists because they're all going someplace, so coaches covet
basketball
their
is
skills
not dead, right? We're rolling, and it's really good to hear that 40 plus of our kids are potentially going to play D1, and then a whole slew more are going to play college basketball. Period. That is just fun to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. It's great, and again, we want to celebrate that, as always, and talk about those who are. And again, that's a tribute to great coaching. A lot of it. It's putting kids in situations to succeed,
getting excited about playing basketball.
Right. Yep. You lose someone like a Cameron Clegg. Okay, let's figure out what offense we're going to run now that maybe is more sharing the ball as opposed to letting someone kind of lead the way, because that's what they do. Arbor Prep is a program that has been obviously strong for the last several years. You've got them kind of back down right now at 16. They're in Division III now.
I think they graduated 4 starters.
So they
last
lost
year.
The girl, one of the sisters to Bradley.
Yep.
Is the last sister a senior?
The last sister is a senior, but she had a delayed start a little bit to her senior season because she had a little bit of a knee.
Okay.
I don't know that she had surgery, but it's the last of the Petrie sisters, Mowery, who is also going to Bradley, so she'll be there with her older sister next year. But
she hasn't played much yet, or not at all?
She just started. I think she's got 2 games in.
Okay.
So I think her first game was Renaissance,
but
and then they played in the tournament on Saturday, and then they may have played yesterday. But she's got a lot of experience, which is going to be necessary on that team because there are a lot of young kids on that team. But a lot of young kids led by arguably the best freshman in the state, and Maya Petticord, who's got 9 D1 scholarship offers before she ever laced it up. Yeah. So the opening night of their season, I figured, okay, well, they're playing Clarkston. That's a good test, Class A team that went to the quarterfinals last year, so regional finals, one of the 2.
Yeah.
But they were very good last year, albeit they lost quite a bit of talent from that team too. So I just figured, let's go see if she can live up to the hype. She put up 33, and so then her next game, she played in a tournament at home, the Icebreaker Classic that they always have at Arbor Prep, which is a great tournament. Put up 34, and so it's one of those where sometimes kids get so much hype before they even get to high school that they can never live up to that standard, but she's the real deal.
Right.
And the other one that is right alongside her is the kid from DEPSA, Ruby Whitehorn, who is on that black team,
that's great.
the B team for them, who got in the game a little bit on Saturday against Afrocentric just to get her a taste, but she's another one, 6'2" point guard. She's just she's all kinds of long and lean and can get to the hoop. But you're seeing these kids younger and younger making contributions on the high school level because they're ready. And you can't tell me that Maya Petticord should be on a JV team when she can score 33 and 34 against Class A teams as a Class C. So that's a program where I think toward the end of the year they're going to be back to where they think they belong a little more than they are right now, where they're working in so many new kids. But when you've got, Amari Petrie and a Maya Petticord to kind of anchor the ship, that certainly helps.
Well, what's exciting, Dan? The first annual State Champs Winter Jam. Very exciting.
It's going to be a blast.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I want to thank Dan Young and BCAM and everyone who's kind of helped with this, and Wallace Whitfield, who's excited, he got our refs for us, and everybody kind of really jumping in on the fact that that you guys should do this, and we want to be kind of the next showcase that is around every year, and we want to attract
Sport LTU
and attract the best teams
and have
Miss
a great
Basketball
day.
candidates and Mr. Basketball candidates
Really
going
about
at
it.
young talent, freshmen and sophomores, so that college coaches can come and check these guys out in a competitive environment. Kind of the cool thing about LTU holds about 1,500. So please come to the game, because when you get in there, it's going to really feel. It's going to have that old school feel when you're packed in and the electricity starts. You're close to the action.
It's a great gym. The boards are right up against the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a shooter's gym for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
So get ready. Get the nets nice and clean, and maybe get some new ones put up, because there's going to be some swishes.
All right, we're going to have it hype.
Right.
Maybe we'll just get the chains. We'll just have those chains in there, so we can just hear it. Just go playground in there. Yeah.
Come check it out.
Country Day in Detroit Edison is our first matchup of the day. Two girls, state champions, now competing in the same division. They'll both be competing in Division II. Obviously, Country Day is a program that is also going for a three-peat, and they are without some pieces that they've had, but again, they've still got some senior leadership there. You did see them on Saturday. They faced another kind of out-of-state powerhouse. And what was your impression of Country Day? And again, this is a great thing about December, is that
it might not be pretty right now.
You're always figuring things,
yeah.
but it's kind of fun to watch that process and see how
and that's why
players
Frank
develop.
Orlando and these others would let's play.
Let's play.
See how it goes.
Exactly. And Edison the same way. They're going to try some things and say, let's kind of mess around a little bit with schemes and things like that and see how we do. But in the end, let's get out and let's compete.
Yep. And part of what tripped Country Day up in the tournament on Saturday when I saw them was Jasmine Powell, their exceptional point guard, who's going to Minnesota to join Destiny Pitts, who's already there and still tearing it up. She rolled an ankle, it looked like, partway through the second quarter, and they'd built a 20-point lead at that point, and it looked like it was going to be a blowout. And she never came back in the game, and it was probably at that point, barring something, it's probably precautionary. It's a December game against a team that from out of state, so it doesn't really matter.
And they haven't had to play a game this week,
right?
So she can rest for Saturday, which is good.
So with her out, it was kind of a struggle for them to beat the pressure, and the pressure started to mount as Northland from Columbus started to make a little bit of a comeback, and they ended up erasing what was a 20-point first half deficit and winning, I think, by 8.
Okay.
So, but it was one of those where that depth that we've talked about with Country Day is not where it has been in the past.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, welcome to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
One ball handler, and if
this
he or
is how
she
everyone
is out,
else lives.
Your team is totally different.
So those who are coming off the bench obviously get some experience in an electric environment.
It's
back
December.
then.
You're gonna have to find another.
Right. So they might have been able to really in practice learn from what maybe they allowed that comeback for this week. So they didn't have a game this
week. It's like losing the Clegg.
And I know that.
Got to figure it
and
out.
Lenawee Christian had, I think, beat them.
Yeah. Yep.
So
and Lenawee Christian is an interesting team because that's a D4 team that kind of came out of nowhere. They hadn't really had much success in the tournament over the years. They really hadn't been all that good. And I think everybody was kind of lining up that this was probably Sacred Heart's year up in Mount Pleasant to win it finally. They'd been kind of angling toward it. And I watched the semifinal game between the two. And when you've got a 6'2" freshman who can handle the ball and shoot from the outside on the D4 level, you probably have something. Yeah. And so that's Breece Allenbine. And she went to the USA trials out in Colorado for I believe the under-16 team.
That's awesome.
And so and then she came back from that and went on the AAU circuit and just tore it up. So she and her older sister Danny are kind of the two cogs on that team, but it's a pretty deep team, and they've got a couple of freshmen this year who are going to help out.
You have her. That's where she's
It'll be interesting to watch them this year because their dad Jamie is the coach, and as an independent, It's one of
Yeah,
those
no league.
it's one of those where it can cut both ways. It
Yeah.
can be hard to schedule sometimes, as Edison has found out over the last
Country
couple of
day.
years. Exactly. That no one wants to play you once you've reached that
Yeah.
level. But as a D4 team, it's a little different.
Yeah.
So people are willing to
go
take
up.
them on.
Yeah.
So they have an independent schedule, and you may see them kind of like a Waterford Our Lady of the Lakes has in D4 over the
Sure.
last couple of
Sure.
years. They'll play anybody,
Yeah.
and they'll go into the tournament with 5-6 losses,
And
and
we'll-
everybody will be discounting them and looking at some of the teams that are 19-1 and 20-0 and expecting them to win. Well, this team is battle tested, and that Lenawee
Smart.
Christian team
Yeah.
is going to be battle tested, having played them and having played Michigan Center. I believe they played. They just came up with a huge game against Williamston the other night. They played 5 overtimes. That was just, I was following along on Twitter and kind of kicking myself that I hadn't gone. It ended up tying for the longest game in girls basketball state history.
Really?
Yeah, and it was 3 points away from being the highest scoring game ever in state history. So they just went
5
at it.
overtimes.
And Williamston was a team that was very good last year, lost a bunch, but should still be pretty good this year. And Michigan Center went in Class B to the semis, I believe. So that's a team that's going to be worth watching down the road. They had another kid, you're hearing a lot of the stories about kids who had knee injuries coming back, and they had one of their JC Shannon just, I believe, got cleared yesterday to come back. So hearing a lot of girls who are coming off knee surgeries who are kind of working their way back in, but this is the time for it now. And you get those December tests, and you get to see how good your team is against some non-conference people. These are the times when it's fun to kind of watch these matchups, kind of like the intersectional matchups we get in football when we get a Muskegon versus a De La Salle or something like that. It's the same kind of thing when you get to see some of these teams, and that's going to be one of those. Granted, both Country Day and Edison are from the same general region, but those are still two powerhouses that it'll be fun to watch on Saturday.
And it's fun because you're playing in December. You've got lots of times to kind of time to figure out what where you're going to be when you meet in the eventual quarterfinals. Or
It's great for Miss Basketball for people to see where Katie
That's
Jack.
right.
I mean, that's huge.
Yes.
Is that she.
Yes.
A lot of people can tune in and see what she's all about.
Come see her. It's best to see it live. We will be broadcasting the games. Each game will air immediately following its conclusion. So statechampsnetwork.com is where you go to check it out. We'll make sure we give you the links on social media, Facebook and Twitter. So you'll be able to watch the broadcast, but it really is nothing like being live. It's $10. It's an all-day ticket. Come hang with us. We're going to be there all day. It's going to be a great time right here at Lawrence Tech. So make sure you come check it out. BCAM.org is the website, and that's where you need to sign up and become a member. Go learn about everything that BCAM has to offer. We certainly appreciate them. Dan, and we're going to talk more about the Winter Jam coming up in just a minute here, so stay with us on the show. Dan, happy holidays,
Thank you.
friend.
Enjoy it. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Matt, thank you.
All right. We will talk to both you guys coming up a little bit after the start of the year. So for the BCAM segment, we say Happy New Year to all of you. And again, join us at the Winter Jam. We'll take one more commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Coaching basketball is a rewarding and challenging pursuit, but you don't have to do it alone. The Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan are here to support you.
BCAM is the largest coaches association in the country with nearly 6,000 members representing college, high school, and middle school ranks. Members have access to drills, clinics, job opportunities, and it's the only way to vote for our annual awards, including Mr. and Miss Basketball.
Join today by visiting bcam.org, because better coaching always matters.
All right, so I want to thank Dan Young and Matt Mowery for talking some girls hoops for the past several minutes, and that was our BCAM segment. Appreciate BCAM being a part of the program. Of course, Lawrence Tech, Hungry Howie's, the MHSAA, all our big sponsors for this particular podcast. We want to talk about the State Champs Winter Jam now. Horatio Williams, kind of our presenter in this, and has helped us raise a little money for the event and get things ready here at the Ridler Field House on the campus of Lawrence Tech. 4 great games, one price, $10. Do know, though, a couple of things that, no re-entry. So we want you to be here all day. We will have concessions and all that, but if you leave, you got to come back. You got to pay $10. So, but we've got 4 games. We've got the girls getting going. We just talked about that on the podcast with Dan and Matt, talking about Debsa playing against Country Day. And so I went and saw Debsa on Tuesday. And
Rakia Jackson had 35.
Yeah, she did. She's pretty much unstoppable when she's doing her thing. So
there's a reason she's an All-American.
Yep, going to Mississippi State, the national champs. Our first game for the boys will be Westland, John Glenn, and Mount Clemens. So be interesting. Mount Clemens, I've seen Mount Clemens has struggled a little bit, although they played some good competition. You consider they played Pontiac and they lost, and that was a close game. And Pontiac, we talked about how good they are. And granted, Southfield Christian, just blew them out. Let's not, mince words here.
It's a tough place to play, Southfield Christian, I think.
Exactly. But Javon Hanna is a freshman that you need to see. If you follow,
Diaper Dandy.
Check us out on Twitter right now. I put up a video of his performance against Troy Athens, his 34-point performance. He's going to bring it. And I think in these kind of situations, electric atmospheres, that's when you want to play because there's a lot of eyeballs on you. So I think it should be fun. I will get a chance to see John Glenn. They just had their home opener. They've only played one game. And 84-39, they beat Livonia Franklin. So to drop 84 in your opener shows that you're a team that's ready to
Dan
go.
Young left that program in pretty good shape for the guy that took over him.
Rod Watts is
and Rod Watts comes from the Lansing area.
Was at Lansing Eastern, Coach LaDante Henton. Prior to that, assistant coach at Lansing Everett when they wound up winning a state title in 2003, I believe.
Cha-Cha Tucker.
Yeah, Coach Cha-Cha Tucker. Rod Watts he's a defensive guy, and I know that's first and foremost. I know that. I'm at every camp that I've seen him. Whether it be the Michigan Elite 25, whether it be rising higher. We're reaching higher. He does a little. He focuses on defense, and so it really doesn't surprise me that he held a team to under 40 points. What did surprise me is he's got a team that's scoring 80 plus.
Right.
And I think that's great. And they've got a fantastic point guard. Senior Joe Moon,
who
does a really good job of dispersing the ball, and he's the front line of defense, and he's got the strength, and and not only that, you got to have some basketball IQ to really get.
It'll be interesting. I'm going to see them play Wayne Thursday, so
battle of two of the best guards. In the state.
And they play in a good league, so
Kelley.
it's good basketball. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. That'll be our 3 o'clock. We get into the 5 o'clock, and we've got Ypsilanti and we've got Cass Tech. So we know Cass Tech. I've got clips right now of Cass Tech's win over King on Tuesday, and they're going to also play Douglas on Friday for their tune-up for our event. Ypsilanti beat Jackson at home last Friday. I was at that game. The guard, Christian Knox, we talked about, had 16. Markeith Browning had 9, and that wasn't asked to do a whole lot. Jordan Young played well, had 8 in that particular game. And so they are a team that's going to come in, and they're going to scrap. We had them ranked 10th in our rankings. We expect Cass to move up higher in the rankings here. They'll be 2?
Yeah.
All right, so we've got it right now. There you go. So it's the number 2. So that's a game you want to see. And, again, in an environment such as Lorne Tech, I think the field house will be rocking for that one because you can expect there's going to be some throwdowns. And again, Markeith Browning is a kid that you want to come and watch play.
A very exciting player. The kid just
from Hotlanta.
Yeah, from South Cobb High School.
Yeah. Now grew up here in Ypsi, was a middle schooler at Ypsi and everything, and then his family moved to Georgia and was playing.
The weather was too nice, and they were like,
and now he's back.
Right.
And now he's back, and he's back home, and
he's a peach of a playmaker.
Yeah.
Get it? Yeah, Georgia Peach.
I get it. So looking forward to that. And then our 7 o'clock will be a great game as well. Grand Rapids Catholic Central, who had a good win against Grand Rapids Christian last week, had to go to overtime to win last weekend. And then I think they had a pretty good win the other day. Canton, on the other hand, dropped 70 on Tuesday and beat Brighton 70-48. This is a team, again, you talk about talented at the guard position.
Yeah, Vincent Sigmund and Beartis White, who's headed to Western Michigan. Vincent's going to have an opportunity to play in college as well.
Talk about that matchup, Canton and Grand Rapids Catholic Central.
I think that you've got
great point guards, Austin
2 of the
Brown
best point guards in the state, and Austin
Beartis.
Brown. Yeah, and then Beartis, and let's say this. two of the best backcourt combinations, because Devin Boyd's a really good junior, probably more than likely a scholarship player. I'm not necessarily convinced that he's a Division I player, but I think that without a doubt he'll be playing for a Division II.
And Austin Brown's going to Grand Valley.
Austin Brown's going to Grand Valley, and he is the energizer on that team. He's the Wally Backman of the New York Mets, 1986. I'm just saying the Mark Lemke's and stuff like that. Where
Mark,
like the guy
I love it. I love those references.
Yeah, I mean, the
people that are watching probably don't get it, but I do.
Yeah, in the 20th century.
Just those glue guy.
Yeah.
But Braun is a glue guy that is also a primetime playmaker.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
And there's no more Marcus Bingham on that team, but
Mikhail Bingham.
Yep. And I'll tell you, and Mikhail is another kid he's a little bit different than his brother, in that even though he's 3, 4, 5 inches shorter, probably better rebounder. As far as just technique, and Marcus was able to do a lot just based off of his height and athleticism. The other thing about that is Mikhail is about 6'6" right now, and maybe an inch or shorter than his brother at the same age. And Marcus is one of those guys where, like, I don't know if you found some milk or vegetables or whatever wound up happening, because that guy just kept on
power forward.
Yeah, right. And so but he kept on. He's one of those kids where just kept on growing, and we could very well see Mikhail. 3 days
he's only
out,
a junior,
or
right?
3 days out. Yeah, he's only a junior. I mean, there's a chance that he might grow another inch in the next few days,
just before Saturday.
Right, just before Saturday. But yeah, he's another kid that's when we want to, being a scholarship player. I really like Jace Williams, who's a standout on their football team. As a sophomore, he's one of those guys where I watched him a couple weeks ago, and first time out there, he hits the floor for a 50-50 ball. Then he comes up with a couple of steals. Then he takes a charge.
Like Billy Roberts over at Muskegon, a football kid that can translate that toughness onto the hardwood.
Jason's running under a 4.5 in the 40.
Right,
Billy,
a little different than Billy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they're pretty strong. And then I really like their freshman as well, Jack Karasinski, who is 6'4", and a solid prospect who can put up some points. And we'll be hearing about his name over the next few years.
All right, it's going to be a great event. We're going to have a great time. We're all going to be there all day.
Come out and say hi.
Scott's going to be doing the color for the John Glenn and Mount Clemens game. And then we will have TJ doing color commentary for the Cass Tech Ypsilanti game. And then Dan Young, the former Canton coach, besides John Glenn, will be doing the color with that Canton Grand Rapids Catholic Central game. So I'll be doing the play-by-play of all that. We've got a great LTU student, Jason, who you'll love, who's doing
for the girls game. Matthew's doing
and Matthew, yes, exactly. Mowery is doing the girls game. Yes, so it's gonna be a great day. We want to see you here. Please come, and the broadcasts will all be up following the conclusion of each game. So probably about 15 minutes after each game completes, the stream will then be up, and you can watch these players do their thing and hear us talk about it. So an opportunity for you to see some play-by-play, early in the season, which you don't get an opportunity to
looking for some
UCLA
cuts.
Game. Yeah.
I've been studying Bill Walton.
Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe not studying that hard.
All right.
I'll give McCormick a call and see how.
Before we end the show and end 2018, there are some other holiday tournament action that will be happening. What are some things that you'll be checking out, and some things that high school basketball fans go check out?
Well, obviously the 24th annual the Motor City Roundball Classic, which is in its 24th year, will be at Ferndale. The girls will be playing at Warren Lincoln. So both not 10 minutes apart. It's December. The girls will be playing December 27th through the 30th. The guys will be playing December 28th through the 30th. But Chicago Ore is coming up. They are two-time state champions in back-to-back state champions in Illinois. They've got one of the top unsigned seniors in the country in Tawante Williams, who's an electrifying 6'5" and can really get some stuff done.
Who are they playing?
Texas Tech, and they play 3 games. They start off on the 28th by playing Ferndale. Then on the 29th, they play UD Jesuit, and on the 30th, they get Detroit King. So we're trying to give them the best opportunity that they have. But it's great to have teams like Okemos. We've got Williamston, who's highly ranked in the state top 3 team in Division II. Then we've also got a lot of local teams in Harper Woods and Harper Woods Chandler Park, who caps the night. They play Catholic Central at the very end of the conclusion of the 21 game marathon, which it is the PSL. They also have an event at Cass Tech on December 26th and 27th. Then I also know that Cornerstone, they have a little tournament that's going on where I think they just we're like 3 separate tournaments, 4 teams. And so they've got team games that are running from like the 27th through January 2nd.
North Farmington has something too, right?
Yeah, and North Farmington has something as well.
On the 28th.
Yes. Yep. And the 29th also has Ypsilanti. They have their Washtenaw County event, and that's going to be pretty strong. And I know that they've got, I think Benton Harbor's coming over to play River Rouge.
Is Lincoln a part of
and
that?
And then Ypsi Lincoln is a part of that. So, it's nice to have
get your Imani Bates.
Get your get your fix on with the Imani Bates. Definitely a player that you should be making a household name. Go and see him sooner than later, because then you can brag and be like, I remember when he didn't have a mustache.
Yeah. Do you think,
before all his tattoos.
Do you think
I remember when he was under 200 pounds.
Do you think because he's obviously Imani Bates is the top freshman in the country as far as
defines the term freshman phenom.
You think he's going to stick around? He's going to stay?
You know what? Let's say this. I know that Jesse Davis is good friends with his father, Elgin Bates, and sometimes you have those ties and stuff like that. I don't always see the purpose of, if you're the number 1 player and
you
you've
don't
got
need
all
to go
the
get exposure.
Right.
I mean, are you really looking for exposure?
You're going to play in the summer.
Like that? And I also think that competitive games are one of the things that make you that much better, just the rivalry games and stuff like that.
How about also putting Ypsilanti on the map as a basketball power? How about taking Ypsilanti Lincoln to the Final Four, winning state championships, and doing it for your hometown?
Yeah, you get to go on
that
the river.
That means something.
It does, like Josh Jackson did for Community before he left.
Consortium.
But think about what it would have meant if he would have stayed and would have won 3 state championships in the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then anytime he came back to the city, it's like the guy's never going to pay for a meal the rest of his life.
Right.
Now it's like, well, if you saw Josh Jackson in Detroit, you saw him as a sophomore.
Yes.
A guy like Bates, if he stays at Lincoln and has the legacy that we think he can have and does everything that we expect him to do as a high schooler, he's going to go down as one of the MHSA greats, and he's someone that will be an icon in the city of Ypsilanti for years going forward.
In Washtenaw County, just not Ypsilanti.
Yes.
I'm sure that the legend will last a little bit longer than that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think that sticking around. I think that having a childhood and stuff like that is important to just the maturation of just not being thrown out to the wolves, so fast. And I understand that, hey, we want to get bigger, you want to get better, and you want to do all these other things. Right. I'm sure that he won't have a hard time if he wanted to go get some run with the guys from Eastern Michigan or from University of Michigan. Over the next few years, where when they're in their downtime and stuff like that. I don't know, an underground game, that Hershey, Pennsylvania game that's being played at Washtenaw Community College or something like that,
How about next year's Winter Jam? We have Ypsilanti, Lincoln, and Clarkston playing.
I like it.
Best big guy in the state against best forward in the state.
And a couple of pretty good sophomores there going at it.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that. That's what we have. We plan to grow this thing bigger and better and get some of the best players in the state here. So we will see you guys on Saturday here at the Winter Jam at Lawrence Tech. Once again, 4 games. Games start at 1, 3, 5, and 7. And we want to see you guys here. And we thank everybody for being a part of it. Thank you guys for starting the podcast early this year. Last year we didn't get going until January, so it's great we could get a few episodes in before we get to the new year. Of course, we're going to have a lot to talk about once we get into January, and HangTime will be back. So
come out Saturday, come say hi to all of us.
Absolutely.
Enjoy some great basketball, and everyone have a great New Year.
All right.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays and Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2019.